again, the last video, the last 20 minutes, the final 100 metres straight. And so I think I'll just keep going and see if I can manage to get something a bit more clear in the area of the eyes. And maybe, find the turn of the head a little bit more fully by finding the shadows that are sitting there, the turns away from us. So let's see. Okay. Yeah. Maybe I'll stand back as well and consider whether I want to put a little bit more blue in. Do you want to go? Oh, sorry. You okay? Oh, I thought it was. Over there. I was just wondering if I needed a bit more blue in the jumper again. I think I do, because there's been a bit more action up here now, and so I think we can do with something there. Again. So I'll clean out my palette because the light is falling on the blue of the jumper there, so I don't want it to be dirty. I want it to be nice clean blue. And then clean my brush well. So when I put my brush into the water there, I press it right down and then make sure that all the water, all the colour is out of it before I then pick up some fresh paint. And I put a bit of the vetiver, whatever that blue is, into the ultramarine as well. And I think a bit more water. It's great that Mandy got me 3 things of water, because there's always a clean one. And that's what I've put the brush into there, is a clean pot of water, so that I can get something, maybe the wrinkle that's there first, just to see what the colour is. And then there's a little bit of a shadow there too. I think we just needed something. Like something in that area. The other thing the shield is good for is to stop the model getting paint on her. Sorry. It didn't work that time, sorry. I think hopefully it's the right colour in it. It's the same colour. Oh, that's the idea. Okay, so just some kind of things happening there, just to get a feeling of the seated figure. A little bit more, just there. Okay, no, really no. So, maybe a touch more dark in the hair to find again where the hair stops and the forehead begins here. And then it kind of enters in like that. I think maybe you were turned away from me a teensy bit more, Lily. I'm not sure. Just your face. I'm not sure though. Were you? Or was it just that I can see more of your ear? Oh, that's good. Okay, I think I'll just stick with this brush and see if I can find something to describe more clearly the shape underneath the nose there. Probably do with I could do with, I think, a little bit more of an orangey bit, so the Jackson's orange into the mix there. Seems to be the colour I want. And it might occupy some of the filtrum as well, the dip in the filtrum there. And I'll just let it seep out into the shadow that's cast by the nose. Let's see if that looks a bit strange. It's okay. I was saying to you, Mandy, that the drops sometimes can identify a part that might, in another way of painting, might be painted with a small thin brush. The drops are dark, and so they explain an important point of intersection or a shadow, that's significant. And so somehow I think the drops are helpful to notice. So when you put the brush down and pick it up, I think then it's worth noting where you pick it up, recognising what's going to be left in the wake of, so I'll show you what I mean. I think if I was to use a fairly watery consistency of paint and describe, say, the eyebrow there, it's mostly wet really, and it's lingering there because the paper below the mark isn't wet, so the mark is staying as a boundary line. And it's those single moves, I think, that can have most power in them if it can be really considered with care, the part that you select. I was speaking to, what's your name? Alison. We were talking about this earlier, about how this situation causes me to focus more clearly on my attention on the part that I want to select, and to really know I have to select what's important here. This is our time. I need to make sure that I'm using it in that distilled way of really focusing and selecting one single mark that will place it and leave it alone, that feeling. So it's helpful. This whole setup, while terrifying at times, is also kind of fruitful. Okay. I'm going to pull that up so that it has more of a feeling of the shape that's there. And I think if I were to put another darkish mark out here, it'll stop it reading as though it's too much there, And it's, I think, possible to bring that into this bit here. So I'm pushing and lifting, and hopefully where I lift it will feel like an eyebrow. So there's a few different ways. Of course, that's a bit red now, so I can, well, it's okay, isn't it? It's not too red. Okay. And we'll do something with the hair there again. Okay. And then that side of the face where I was talking about creating a feeling of it turning away from us. One of the things to look at is the shape of the space of skin between the edge of the nose and the edge of the face. And you might find that they run parallel to one another. The edge of the cheekbone there seems to often be parallel to the edge of the nose. So that edge where the top of the cheekbone sits in relation to the hair beside it is often running parallel to the bridge of the nose there. Okay. And then if that's dry enough, often a nostril can explain a lot, but it needs to be seen for where it is. And this one looks to be, that's a bit horizontal, but because it was still a little bit wet, it dropped down a wee bit lower. So I'm just going to lift that off until it's dry enough to establish the nostril on that side. Because those are the things that can kind of bring up the detail that you might need at this late stage. And even that one is a little bit darker than I want it to be, and it's spreading out. So I'm just going to subdue it a little bit again with the tissue paper, and I move on somewhere else. I feel like as soon as somewhere is causing any little bit of unsureness, it's helpful to just leave it, because you will be sure after. Maybe it's a kind of a signal to just move on somewhere else. I'm going to make a nice dark colour again. You might find that they say that the darks are like the bass in music, that they hang it all together. And so you'll find that you might need to keep re-establishing the darks, because watercolour dries a shade lighter. So, for example, that anchor point there, where the hair stopped and the neck started, that could have done with being darker again, I thought. So that it sits back and maybe highlights the parts that are helpful in the shape of the face, the shaping of the face. So there'll be a few spots. I mean, you might want to half close your eyes like this in order to really identify which are the very significant darks. If when your eyes are half closed, it doesn't really read as dark, it doesn't need to be there. Do you know?
Do you ever use that method that you and the Claire used with the different coloured glasses for tones?
Oh yeah, he was looking
I remember watching them on,
it's in that book
actual
actually out there.
demonstration you did, And I asked him about his glasses, and
He's
he gave us
amazing,
a shot
isn't
of
he?
his glasses, and it was
Oh,
amazing.
really?
Just
Yeah.
to let us have a go.
Yeah,
Just
and
so
sometimes
you-
I think he puts a sheet of perspex between him and the model,
Yeah.
ways to obscure his view, and he's incredibly brilliant as an artist, isn't he? You
Yeah,
understand?
yeah, no, I was impressed.
He's
as well.
really-
I just wondered, like, when he everybody thought he had, like, he was short-sighted, but in actual fact he's not. It's just the fact that he screws his eyes so much.
Yeah, he had a red film over his glasses at
Yeah.
one point too, didn't
Yeah,
he?
well, as I said, he has different glasses for
Mm-hmm.
tones,
Yeah, yeah.
nothing to do with his eyesight.
I've never done that with I have tried his technique. He was saying try it. I was saying how amazing it was. He did the self-portrait looking in the mirror, painting like this. and I did it, and actually I'm kind of happy enough with my results too, but his was incredible. He did it in oil paint, and so what he was seeing was himself and his painting, and he was doing it like this. I
I
think.
don't know how you do that.
I don't think he even looked down. I can't remember. There's a video. Look up Ewan McClure self-portrait, and actually Anya Devine self-portrait because I tried it too.
So how did you find when you did that? Did you find
It was
that
fun. It was fresh and fun and different, and kind of I had to really keenly focus. Like it caused me to have a different. There was something activated in my head that was different. Like it was good. Everything else went out the window. I was only thinking about what was there, but I needed to try and somehow explain. Right. So I'm going to darken to those points of intersection that I spoke about before. The dark of the eyebrow. Let's see now. We need to find the eyes too, don't we? So there's two directions to the eye. In the same way as there's two directions to the eyelid, you might find that there's two directions to the eyebrow. There's also at least two directions to the eyelid. And as I paint Lily's eyes, I'm looking at the shape of the space between the eyelid and the eyebrow. More so than trying to draw an eye, you know. And now there's a shadow beneath the lower lid there that pushes up to describe kind of the rounded quality of the eyeball under the skin. And I'll just indicate where I think the iris might be located as I'm at it. And I locate the iris in relation to the eyebrow above, really. And I'm noticing that it's covered by the upper lid. The iris is covered a little bit by the upper lid. And it's located along the longer length of the eyebrow, closer to the bend. And I want to pull those drops up. And I'll let it just be for a wee while. And I'll come back and find a bit more of the detail in there. I want to go across to the other eye just now, before doing any more there. And actually I also want to, there's something here that could just be indicated. I want to lift off that slightly dark patch that's here, because that's not helpful. And in a minute, when that's dry, I'll locate the other nostril properly there. And so the other eye. And in the same way as I was finding the edge of the lip by continuing the line through the face and seeing where I would exit, I'm going to do that too with this line. So the line where the eyelid extends. And first I want to bring the eyebrow across a bit more, because the space between the eyebrows is less than what I've got, I think. And it's not all eyebrow, I mean some of it is shadow. When I say eyebrow, I really just mean the general shadow shape there. And so in order for me to find where the eye needs to be located, I wanted to first be sure that I had the position of the darkest bit of the eyebrow established clearly for myself. And I'm looking to where now the nose is going to, how far out here the nose is going to be located. Something like that kind of thing. And I think, look, if I can explain the C shape of where the nose meets the cheek there. And here's the Jackson's orange maybe mixed into that again, just, you're not seeing a bit of what I'm doing here. Sorry. The Jackson's orange is what's allowing me to explain the shadow that's underneath the nostril there a little bit. And then maybe just where the C shape touches up here. So not painting it fully, just a couple of touches to describe the significant parts. And it's important that I can see them from a distance. I think it's okay. Yeah. that colour is also helpful to maybe even use there. As like the shadow that I was talking about locating, as the face turns away from us, could be helpful to put in as well. I think it's me, but I'm heating up. Are you feeling the heat? I think it's like the kind of nearly
Do you want
finished
the
the paint.
window open, Laura?
No, it's fine. I'm only. It's just my bigger, maybe enthusiasm for. Okay, but see those drops? No, they're not helpful. In my view, I want to make them. Maybe they can explain the edge of the face, maybe rather than leave drops in the midst of the skin. And then we're doing the line where this eye stops and the skin above it starts. Aha. So there's almost like a triangular shape of skin between the eyebrow and the eyelid. And then of course there's that shadow, which is a little bit lower on this side than it is on that side. Lily's had some ailments recently. Slight shadow. No. She doesn't, you don't have shadows under your but you have been getting enough sleep though, haven't you? Like, 'cause you've been kind of getting your 8 hours. That's a terrible thing. It's not that you look like you've got dark shadows, it's just helpful to I'm digging myself even deeper into it. Welcome to my world.
You'll get shouted at when you get home, as soon as you get in the car.
And it's on video as well. Okay, so what about the other line? So it's up a little bit higher there, I think. And now I'm going to just obliterate the original line by putting the iris in. And this is where you want to be sure that your model is looking in the same direction as she was when you first did the other eye. Sometimes you might find that there's almost like a shadow cast by the eyelid onto the iris, the top of the iris nestled into the under the eyelid. Sometimes there's a feeling of a shadow overhanging, like the overhanging eyelid causing a shadow to fall on the top of the iris, which is helpful, I find. So let's see. So I'm going to find the kind of rounded edge and pull it up, and then I place that. It's a bit runny, the paint, so it'll probably run down. But I can establish that shadow I was talking about when it's dry anyway.
You've got 5 minutes.
At 9 o'clock tonight, like. Yeah, 5 minutes, okay. It will dry, I think. Good. You're doing the Mary Berry thing, aren't you, of the...
Artist, put down your brushing.
Or I can be a Alan Carr.
You know who?
Alan Carr.
I don't
Put
know.
your red brushes down now.
Does he do a kind of a
No,
sketch
it's
of
just
that?
doing an interior design thing just now. It's just hilarious.
Oh, really? Oh. It sounds, isn't it last? I always look up. I like him. Have you seen it in the movie? Is it good? Yeah.
To be fair, he's probably better than the interior designer.
I don't know if I could. Andrew was amazing. So I found it.
So I'm trying to find the shape of the shadow as it comes up underneath the eye there.
Unfortunately, I'm going to go 3 days to do a complete refit, give it a break.
So I'm putting a touch of cadmium red into the inner corner of the eye here. And then with a bit more blue in it, I want to, with my eyes half closed, I'm noticing that actually there's a shadow that kind of runs up here, and it almost carries with it, it almost does this, you know, it just goes past all of that. And then there's a shadow that helps to highlight the upper surface of the lower lid, which is a kind of an exciting step in. There's a bit of depth created when you find the dark that allows the plateau of light that's on the upper surface of the lower lid to be really revealed. And then the next thing is the iris. So often you'll find that that's the case, that you find that there's light falling on the, especially with this expert lighting here, there's light falling on the upper surface of the lower lid that's helpful to locate. Let me see. Yeah, something. I mean, we'll come back. I need to come back to those eyes, don't I? Let me see now. I stand back. Okay. So what I want to do now is to go into the space around.
That's Lily's 20 minutes if she wants to have a stretch.
What do you think, Bill?
Yes, I want.
You were sensing that there, were you?
She
Is it okay?
speaks with her eyes.
Can I have another 5 minutes after the stretch? How about that?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
If anyone has to go, feel free to go, but I do want to try and just bring the last few bits together. And I think what I'll be doing is well, I thought I might put it in a little bit more of the skin colour in areas here, just to let it extend beyond the
Would
features.
you like a drink of some sort?
I've got cocaine.
You got Coke?
Costco. I'll say it's great with them at the bed, I'm going to wash them.
Yeah.
You know, I think that colour might be useful to put into some places, just to soften the stark thing in the eyes. Maybe. Do you want to do? You think just stop it?
No, no.
So how many of you are thinking you might give it a go when we send out the photo of Lily? Do you think you might give it a go?
No. I think we'll set a challenge. Set a challenge to the WhatsApp group.
Yes, I got it.
And you know what I do with the online teaching is I set up a private Facebook group where only the group sees the work. And you can see the work in progress, have a chat about it, and we do say, you know, really only encouraging comments because we've got enough of the critical voice in our own heads. But I think it might be quite a helpful thing to, maybe
Yeah,
for this
no, I
we
think
could
it'd
do
be
that.
great. Yeah, it would be
I
great.
mean, I'd be happy to just.
They're
come
used
up
to
with
getting thrown out on Facebook for Dalkeith Arts, so they're used to great criticism.
Oh, so there's a Facebook on Dalkeith Arts.
Oh, yes.
Why don't we just
So
say
we-
on there then?
Yeah, we could put it up there, yeah.
We could put the picture up there, and if anyone wanted to do it.
I wouldn't have the courage.
You would have.
But you don't have to do it in watercolour, you can do it in your own medium.
You could do it in whatever.
Watercolour.
earlier to do the
Pastels or
stretches and the
watercolour.
free
So I'm going to
classes.
put
I'm
so
too
cheap.
precise.
You are very precise.
But
Yeah.
that's a great asset to have
So
too.
is Sonia. She is very precise.
Oh, she is, yeah. But just with little lines.
Yeah, I mean it shows you.
You give me a blank piece of paper, I wouldn't know where to start.
Well, that's why you do the brushing bit first.
You just need to listen up, just go for it.
You know, I can see you.
Colleen's work's very, very precise. She uses pastels and charcoal, stuff like that. There's a lot of like St. Edinburgh landscapes and stuff like that. Like the point where it's like intricate
Yeah.
work. It's stunning.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. And it's a
I mean,
really brilliant
I
thing.
couldn't do that.
I know the Lily Arts.
It's a very good sound ground to have that draftsmanship underneath.
Yeah.
To know where things need to be placed.
She started using rough now, she started using some watercolours and she's been sort of taking some kind of funky.
I get the feeling this is the place if you want to let yourself go.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
It sounds like, you know, this group though, it feels like this is a space where you can be expressive and you invite the individuals.
Willing to try new products, everything, just let them play. Come and play. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah. Is there, could Lily get water from a tap? Is there a tap somewhere out there?
That's right, you were the 29th and you're the 28th.
I can say I'm older than you.
Say 5 minutes.
How long would it normally take you to do it?
When I used to go to a class with Colin, Mum would be there for 4 hours on a Wednesday, and then the following Wednesday, the same on the Saturday for 4 hours again. And so I got used to doing it's 4 hours going, but then I put have the two to push off. One halfway and then I go to the other one and then come back.
Have a bit of time.
Just taking the heat off, but one isn't working my way to the other one. So that's quite a good thing. In some magazines there's a step-by-step kind of thing that shows, you know, where I might stop the first 4 hours in a week and between the different sometimes. Isn't it?
Yeah, especially if there's bits in it that you know are annoying you and you can't work out why.
It just works itself out before you miss it sometimes. Right, Lily, you ready for the final 5?